In the past season of my life, from April or May 2004 until the present, I have gone through some very interesting transitions and discoveries. This is an address. Hello. This is to you, my closest person, or my friend who is becoming more of my close friend. For the better part of 40 years of my life, I was not alarmed. I was not in a state of emergency. I was not motivated by the set of writings and the idea of being guided by a spirit. For 40 years, that was not an idea or a consideration. And some of you may know that on exactly or approximately April 19th, in the year 1994, I was in Haddonfield, New Jersey, by Evans Pond, and I happened to read an eloquent discourse that basically said, listen, there's only one set of writings in all human history that have 200 to 300 predictions set in them, but the predictions are stretched across 1,000 years. And the predictions are written by about 30 people who did not know each other. And all of these predictions point to an event. And the event is not a government. It's not an ice age or global warming. The event is not an earthquake. The event is not a war, or like I said, a government. The event that is predicted is just one little human being. Now, I'm a librarian. I'm a reader. I'm a studier. You can't see or understand the predictions in these writings until you actually have a sketch of that little person's life, and you can look back through the ages and see, oh, this is a precise prediction of what happened at this moment. So, I was presented with a very pleasant and very eloquent proof treatise on the idea that this Bible thing may actually be like a secret message from a friend who's trying to sneak a message in to the humans by providing some supernatural indicators. So all these 200 to 300 predictions point to this one little person. And all these predictions come true in that person's life. And the person is not a worldwide famous person. That person doesn't travel around the world, doesn't go to China or Africa or England. The person only travels around in a small area about the size of New Jersey, which is a funny thing to say because I actually happen to be from New Jersey. Ocean City, New Jersey, Collingswood, New Jersey, Haddon Township, New Jersey. And I spent a lot of time in North Jersey too. So because of this curious proof, which actually sort of blew out of the water my 14 years of early Christianity upbringing. I kind of quit Christianity and church stuff when I was about 14. And I didn't feel like, whatever, the Bible was evil I felt like I learned some good stuff, but I did feel like there was something wrong. There was something missing. There was something that wasn't happening in the church atmosphere that we could be doing. And I'm just a little kid. I can't go to the big pastor guy and say, "Hi, Mr. Methodist pastor. I feel like there's something fake. There's something missing. Is there something else that we're supposed to be doing if we're following Jesus or something?" So instead of kind of expressing any concerns, I just sort of wandered away from the Jesus, God, Church, and Bible to develop my own program and seek my own fortune, sort of. And so the past 30 years, 1994 to 2004 is 30 years. The past 30 years, I have been in truly an emergency status. And people have had various attitudes towards me and what I do and how I supply myself and fund myself and what I labor in doing. And I tell you the truth, I am a very serious, and I'm saying emergency devoted researcher to understand what works. Because all of a sudden, the Bible holding all these predictions, seemingly in the presence of some kind of spirit power. In that little treatise I was reading, it said the spirit that put all those predictions in place in the Hebrew scriptures, that is the spirit that knows your future and knows your past and knows precisely what's on your mind in the present. And then to step forward into the literary debate, that's the predictions, the Hebrew scriptures. But then you've got this thing called the Koine Greek New Testament, the business language of the world in the season when Jesus was alive. The business language of the world was Greek, and there are a few different types of ways of writing Greek. There's classical Greek, there's Attic Greek, I forget the other stuff, but the most important thing is the Koine, Koine. Koine Greek is a special simplistic lettering style that is only capital letters. There's no upper and lower case. So you can't emphasize and put like a special letter at the beginning of a word. Like if you want to say the word Frank or Frankie, you can't make a capital F. It's just Frankie. Frankie. Koine Greek has no upper and lowercase. It has no commas and no punctuation at all. There's no dashes, there's no commas, there's no exclamation points. It's just the letters of the words. And because it was very simplistic, it was extremely effective in being the global business language. And it became efficient very quickly. Now, one of the fascinating things in the history of all this Bible stuff is one of the Egyptian pharaohs, Ptolemy Philadelphus, around the year 250, with some other characters, I forget their names, but they were developing the Alexandria Library because Alexandria and Cairo area of Egypt was kind of like the New York City of the whole business world. And since everybody came through that territory, they decided we should have a wonderful library of all the science and education and gardening and historical things and spiritual things. We should have a wonderful library so that any of the business people who come through Alexandria and Cairo can enjoy learning and take wisdom and learning along with them. So, this Egyptian king pharaoh guy, Ptolemy Philadelphus, invites the Hebrew people in Jerusalem, close by. He invites them to send their famous book, the book of Moses and the prophets and the Psalms. He invites them to bring their book to go into the library. Well, then there's a discovery that nobody here much speaks Hebrew, and he goes to the scribes in Jerusalem, and to their credit, when he says, would you be willing to translate the Hebrew into the Koine Greek business language? The scholars and scribes and leaders of the Jerusalem libraries and religious affairs, they decided this is a good idea. So there's actually an island that the Pharaoh built 70 houses for the translators and their families. They came down from Jerusalem for a considerable period of time, probably took a couple of years to translate every word in Hebrew to Greek. And Ptolemy Philadelphus said, listen, I know that when people get together in a collegium, sometimes if there's a group idea, it's not quite as precise as what a single unusual person might have as their sharpest idea. So he said, I would like you to make 70 separate translated copies from Hebrew to Greek. And when you're all done, me and my Greek scholar folks will sit down and figure out what words that we agree on to change from Hebrew into the Greek language. Well, this whole process took a long time. It was a big deal, and it was such a big deal that for many ages it was celebrated once a year. The translation of the Septuagint was actually an enormous library celebration that happened every year on this island where the Pharaoh actually built houses for the Hebrews. I mean, it's almost like the Israelites are welcomed back by the the Egyptians to bless them, which is a fascinating story. I mean, these are the things that I've been learning over all these years. So, the Septuagint Bible, Septuagint is the Greek word for the number 70, and it's the Bible, it's referred to as the Bible of the 70 because there were 70 translators. So the Septuagint Bible began to be distributed around the known world on the trade routes, written in the Greek language. So how did they make copies of this thing? Well, if you and I were big business owners and we're growing ginger and shipping it to India and to Africa, if we're doing business work, we would have to have 3 pieces of paper that have our contract. One contract for our office, one contract for our customer's office, and one contract as a bill of lading to be carried by the shipper or the person who's doing the transportation. So we need 3 copies of this agreement and this contract. Well, guess what? There's no carbon paper. There's no copy machines. There's no such thing as electronic duplication. And so we as business people have a room that is filled with writers, with people who are capable of writing very well. They've been raised to understand words and language and printing, and they are copyists, they're scribes. So we have our own personal room full of scribes, and so we can say, hey, I'm really fascinated, with this book of the Psalms and the book of the Proverbs. And I can hand to my scribe, my copyist, the book of the Proverbs, and he can actually write out another entire copy in the Koine Greek language. Wow. So, as a treat, business people were making copies of the Septuagint Bible to give to their friends and their business partners. And so the Hebrew Bible, which was pretty much bottled up and closed up just into a small region, all of a sudden it's starting to flow straight out everywhere in the world. And the people are talking about this famous exodus of the Jews, these people that were in slavery for 400 years, that got out of slavery without a war and stayed alive in a desert for 40 years and then settled in an extremely fertile land later on. And that's the story in the Hebrew writings. It's the story of those people, the Israelites that were supernaturally freed from Egyptian slavery captivity. So, since this ponderous idea that there is a spirit that knows me and who actually cares, and that spirit knows my past, knows my future, and knows how to guide me or instruct me somehow. And I have to become curious about how to communicate with that spirit. Back in April 1994, this became the emergency. Because I certainly was not sat down at 6 years old and told, listen, kid, God is really real. He's your friend. He's the invisible friend on the inside, and he wants to talk to you. You can ask him little questions like, what can I do to help mommy today? And he can actually give you a silent picture on the inside of one little thing that could help her and make her happy. That is how God will talk to you. If you ask God for how you can be a servant, even to your kitty cat, how do I help my kitty cat today? I was never given the opportunity or the invitation or the idea to sort of workshop on talking to God silently on the inside. And then ages later, when I met my spiritual grandpop, Andrew MacDonald Graham, who was, he was the poet laureate of the Clan Graham Society in America. And this guy was funny, and he was something else. And he said, son, no demon can read your silent voice on the inside. Only God can hear your silent prayers and laments and screams and requests. There's no spirit that is able to decipher the silent you. Those spirit beings around you who hate humans, they can see when you tense up your face, when you tighten your butt muscles. They can tell when your tone of voice changes. How come you don't not? They can pick up on your tone of voice, what you're excited about, what you're upset about, what you're afraid of. They can pick up on all of your emotions, but they cannot hear your silent inner voice. You're safe on the inside, talking with God. Now, they can actually introduce ideas, pictures, video clips. They can do all kinds of things to put stuff in your mind or in your emotions. Reminders of bad things that happened, or, you can hear voices that make declarations, but you don't necessarily have to agree with them. One of the greatest things in the whole Bible is one statement: test the spirits, test the voices. Because every voice that comes forward, every statement that you feel or fear feel or are aware of or hear, is not necessarily for your benefit, and not necessarily something that you should take heed to. So discerning spirits is actually one of the most important gifts of the Holy Spirit. But the reason why I'm making this recording, I should title it The Grandpa Honesty Guy Masterclass. That's what I'm going to begin. I mean, I've been at this for a long time, and I ain't fooling around no more. And plenty of people have given me lip service and said, oh, I appreciate you and blah, 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 blah. But there is no one right now truly standing with me and thinking on all of these glorious, simplistic projects for individuals and families and children. The past 30 years, I have been developing the ideas that I wish I had gotten from parents and friends when I was a tiny child, 4, 5, 8, 12 years old. I have met children who have such a spirit awareness that they can walk over and heal somebody with a crippled knee. And I thought to myself, wow, I could have been one of those kids. Oh my gosh, this kid is nobody special. He's just a kid. But he has the Spirit of God. He's immersed in Yeshua. He is a true disciple of Yeshua. And he's taking the mystical communion meal regularly in a home setting with men who actually renounce their sins. And that gathering of the brotherhood is benefiting the women and benefiting the children enormously. And this is not some kind of prideful, patriarchal, puffed up mindset. This is an attitude of servanthood. The men are going to be judged more harshly. You've heard of the Adam and Eve story. Well, guess what? You want to hear what the ancient rabbis say about the Adam and Eve story? It was 100% Adam's fault. Eve was doing what she was supposed to do. Adam did not speak up 5 times. And I'm speaking up right now. I'm speaking up for the masterclass. And I intend to turn this into a Grandpa Honesty Guy YouTube numbered series. And if you're bored with the things that I have to say, and if you don't feel like I have anything special to offer, I don't want to waste your time. But I'm telling you, you are going to be hard pressed to find a person who has actually sat with all these different ministries quietly, following along, helping, listening, comparing scripture, understanding. Oh my gosh. So, the wise rabbis say, okay, number 1, Adam did not say to his wife, hey, honey, we're heading for the tree of life to take a snack. I bet it's going to be really tasty. We're heading for the tree of life. When the man tells the woman what's on his mind, she is provisional and she actually has thoughts and perceptions that are different and better and stronger and complementary to the man. So when the man says, hey, I'm heading in that direction to eat from that tree, the woman is thinking about the path they're going to take, the shoes what they're going to wear, what's going to happen on the way. And number 1, he didn't tell her we're on our way to eat from the tree of life. Number 2, he did not say to her, let's not go anywhere near that tree that God told us not to eat from. That's number 2. Second time he could have spoken up. Third time, there is a shining spirit being. Forget the concept of a snake. If you do a study on that word, the word means a shining one. The word means a deceiver. The The word can also mean a snake, but it's not talking about a member of the animal kingdom. This was a spirit being in a disguise for the eyes of human, especially for the eyes of this woman. And that spirit being made a declaration. But Adam, we're heading for the tree of life. Let's not go anywhere near that other tree. Let's not talk to any shining, wise creature standing by that tree that God told us not to eat from. And when Eve took the fruit, she was convinced that she was doing the right thing, that she was actually doing a thing that was good for both of them because it makes you become more like God. And the idea of becoming more like God is good because it's half good. It's half true. God did not want us to have the awareness of evil. He wanted us to be able to remain at peace and remain innocent. But the knowledge of good and evil at the same time makes us more like God. She was actually serving her husband with a point of logic that she held as valuable or realistic. And she was deceived. The thing that she had, felt or decided was not the best thing. But do you know that in the rabbinic tradition, after Eve ate, if Adam had said, okay, well, as far as me, I'm not going to eat that, I'm not going to touch that. And if he had said no, and they walked away from that tree, you and I would not have experienced the death and sickness and depression and pain that we have experienced because of a man not speaking up. And I'm speaking up, man. It's time for me to speak up in a lot of directions. God help me. So if Adam had said, I'm not going to eat that, come on, honey, I love you, since she's just an extension of him, and she operated independently of his full agreement, we would have been saved if he had just said no. So it was not Eve's fault. But the lesson is that spirit beings can utilize female human being who is so wonderful, so delightful. Spirit beings can utilize female human being to draw male human being away from their best path. And that's just a reality. It doesn't mean that women are bad. It means that they're pleasant and delightful and they're miraculous. The word etzer does not mean a person who can help you wash the dishes. God could find no etzer for the man. That word is translated into English helper, and that's a crummy translation. That word means a supernatural protector against evil enemies and problems. It literally means a supernatural problem solver. So God could not find for the man an appropriate supernatural problem solver. So he actually formed the woman. The woman is not a helper. She's a supernatural problem solver that is a perfect complement to the male human being, and judged less harshly because she is slightly weaker and slightly more easily deceived by an unclean spirit because of her nurturing and caring and mothering nature. She is a little bit more easy to draw off of the truth. Slightly. So, it's time for the master class. I've been at this for a long time, and I want to make a couple of declarations about how I intend to go forward with my life. And I basically have all the materials for my 6 books essentially complete. I just need a listening team, an editing team, to have fun assembling the whole thing, because it's all these different pieces that are going to be set together. And so, this is my reintroduction. I have had many literal tragedies and problems with telephones and communications and computers. And I've been somewhat rejected and abandoned and subjected to some disasters recently. Some of you know that my financial situation is just a walking by faith, and has been for the past 30 years, because I'm researching and I'm also applying myself to what I would call emergency relationship needs that take precedent. So, this is the introduction to me speaking up, the introduction to the Grandpa Honesty Guy Masterclass on Grandpa Honesty Guy YouTube.